I'd like to thank the grace of heaven, the virtues of the masters, and the compassion and mercy of the grand predecessors, senior transmitters, lecturers, temple masters, and everyone for giving me this opportunity today to talk about today's topic, which is the Classic of the Way and the Virtue, chapter 67, the three treasures. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is in the 60s, in the 10 chapters in the 60s section. This is the longest chapter. It's divided into four. Well, it's four sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's really 3 sections, but with three subsections in the last section. Okay, so the first 6, you can say the first the first 6 the first 6 phrases, if you will. He's Lao Tzu is laying down his thesis, saying that the Tao is very great. It's great beyond compare. Okay, it's beyond any comparison. Okay, so in that sense, it's similar to 2, right? 52, the profound, wondrous Tao, right? Okay, so all right. So the second section is basically he's listing out what the 3 treasures are. Okay, and then the last section is composed of 3 subsections. The first section, he's that's phrases 12 through 15. Okay, he's talking about how true courage, the wide influence and leadership comes from the 3 treasures. Yeah, how they're connected to the 3 treasures. And then also he's talking about where not true courage or not wide influence and not real leadership results without the 3 treasures, and then the conclusion. Okay, all right. So now this chapter also has, especially in the second half here, from phrases 12, just as for FYI, looking forward, has connections to chapter 69, which we will also look at in a couple of weeks. Okay, so anyway, all right. So that's the overview of the 3 treasures. Now let's go to the outline. Okay, 3 treasures. All right. So it's 10 pages. I'm going to take about 90 minutes, 80, 90 minutes. Okay. All right. So everyone in the world calls my Tao great and seems beyond or nothing, or seems beyond compare or nothing like it. Okay. That's, depending how you want to translate it. It is only because of its greatness that it seems beyond compare. Okay. If it meaning the Tao, okay, can be compared, it already would be insignificant long ago. All right. Let's see. Okay, basic meaning of the first phrase, which is everyone in the world calls my Tao great. All the people in the world calls the Tao that Lao Tzu was describing. Okay, it's the Tao that Lao Tzu was as so great that it is indescribable, because it cannot be compared to anything like the way physical objects can. All right. Okay. Now there's another deeper level of understanding of what the phrase that he used here, my Tao, right? Wo Tao. Okay. It means the Tao that Lao Tzu has been studying and trying to understand and describe to the best of his ability. Okay. So just understand, okay, it's not a proprietary or exclusive, okay, so proprietary, exclusive, right, claim of the Tao. Make sure you understand. Okay, so since the Tao is the path or the way, no one can claim exclusive ownership, just like no one owns the roads or paths. Okay, because the paths or pathways or roads have always existed since the first humans walked on the earth. Okay, the path. Okay, the path. We say the road. Okay, the path, because it always has existed since the first humans around this world. Okay, so it's not a proprietary. So Lao Tzu is not talking about my personal Tao. Okay, he's just trying to describe this overall broad concept or thing called Tao. Okay, all right. So additional meaning is that hence in our Tao, in the Tao, okay, no one can claim, and this is very important, okay, that my Tao is the only correct Tao. Everyone else is wrong, right? Okay. Now you can substitute the Tao for religion or belief or whatever. Okay, it doesn't matter. But okay, the Tao does not belong to any one individual group. Okay, that's called the mean of exclusivity. Okay, that means okay. Let me see. Okay, so that what it means that many groups, you could say, groups could be anybody, okay, all right, which claim to have exclusive truth or exclusive correctness that often results in a holier than thou attitude. That's the problem, okay, all right, okay. So so anybody understand what a meme is, right? A meme is just it's like there's a background story behind how that word came about. Okay, it came from the word that's from Greek. Okay, Latin. That's Latin. Sorry, it means it's a Latin. It comes from it's derived from memetics, memetics, which is it's a study. It's based on evolutionary biology. Anyway, okay, and there's an author. I forgot his name. Dawkins. I think it's John Dawkins or something like that. Michael Dawkins or John. Anyway, Dawkins that wrote a book about evolutionary biology, and he used that word. He coined the phrase mean. Okay. Anyway, but just mean is the counter. It's an analog to genetics. Mean is the cultural analog to genetics, to the to the genetics and biology. It just means it's a cultural idea, value, or pattern of behavior that is passed from one person to another by non-genetic means, such as imitation, etc., etc. Okay, so that's the cultural parallel to genetics. Genetics, right? We have our physical traits, some people say maybe even psychological, but physical traits or characteristics are passed on from our previous generations, our parents, the grandparents, etc., right? So that's the physical aspect. The meme is the cultural, or you can say not, or intangible aspect. Okay, that's what it means. All right. So I don't want to go into too much detail about that, but just so you understand what that means. Okay. So rather, the Tao belongs to everyone. No one owns the Tao. Okay, but everyone and everything is part of the Tao. So that's what makes the Tao so great. So no one can own anything. Okay, all right, own the Tao. All right, you can have the Tao, you can be part of the Tao, but you don't own the Tao. It's not just exclusively one person's. All right, so that's it's not a selfish, right? By that trait, it means it's not selfish or selfless, or it is selfless. All right, okay. So conversely, now there's also another now that's one extreme, right? This is one extreme. Okay, so now there's another extreme. Okay, the reverse is the other extreme. Anybody right realize that there's a reverse, another extreme? Okay, let's see. Okay, all right. This is kind of long. Okay, here. All right. Okay. All right. So conversely, the reverse is the other extreme, which is everyone's Tao is correct. There's no one correct Tao. Okay, so very interesting. So you can substitute the religion, belief, same thing, or principles. Everyone's belief or religion is correct. There's no one correct religion. Okay, now that's partially correct, but okay, there's also what we call a core, a standard that we cannot deviate. Okay, so that's an important part. Okay, so to each in their own unique way. That's what this this quote would imply, would translate it, would mean. But since ancient times, there is a lineage of past Tao masters, sages, and enlightened beings who have cultivated and realized the Tao by following. And here's the important thing. Okay, here's the important qualification or core point is that they follow a certain set of beliefs, practices, and tradition that are time-tested and proven, which are a reflection of their true selves or true nature or Buddha nature, conscience, etc. such as, what are those, I don't know, time-tested, proven qualities or, okay, traits? They are compassion, mercy, loving kindness, contentment, humility, selflessness, etc. Okay, so these are the common traits or characteristics of all these past enlightened masters, Tao sages, etc., etc. Okay, all right. So there is one true eternal Tao. There's a core and essence, but it is impossible to describe completely, right? Okay, so the best we can do is to learn, understand, follow, and manifest or cultivate our true nature, our Buddha nature. That is the one true correct Tao. Okay, so the essence is the same. It's identical. Okay, so in that sense, everyone's Tao is correct. That's true, the essence. But in terms of the manifestation part, right, or the cultivation, etc. Okay, the expression part, you can say the practice part. Okay, we have to reflect certain qualities. All right. Okay. So, all right, or show quality. Okay. So now the deeper understanding of my Tao is that the Tao is within all of us. Okay. So Lao Tzu is, yes, he's not talking about the personal Tao. He's just saying that the Tao is in all of us. Okay. All of us has that. The essence of the Tao is in all sentient beings. That is the physical I, that's the manifestation function part of Tao, of the essence, and the Tao, the essence of the Buddha nature, true self, etc., are merged into one. We are in one, okay? We are at one. This is the oneness which is beyond compare. This oneness is what allows sentient beings to be aware, to become enlightened, to be able to transcend the physical self, okay? So that's what he meant by the my Tao, all right? Okay, so the basic meaning now, let's look at the second line, which is, and seems beyond nothing compare. It is only because of its greatness that it seems beyond compare. All right, so that's what that, okay, so basically it just means the Tao is infinitely vast. If you want to use a physical description to describe it, or physical, I would say physical dimensions to describe it, it's infinitely vast. It's beyond imagination. So, but it may not seem like it, okay? Because we only see the edges, or we cannot see the infiniteness of the Tao. All right, okay. So another second line is that there's nothing or no form that can compare to the Tao. There's no physical or tangible objects that is comparable to the Tao. This is because the Tao is infinite, but it has no form, substance, limit, or boundaries, right? Okay. Conversely, if the Tao were finite or limited, then no matter how big it is, there would always be something far greater that dwarfs it, okay? So if the Tao has form, then it is finite and can be compared and can be small, okay? So that's why the Tao has no form, okay? So that's what makes it beyond compare, right? Because if the Tao has a form, then it can be compared, okay? All right, and can be small. So just like the largest mansion in the world may be incredibly huge compared to a normal house, right, to a modest house, but it is not that big compared to the country, or to the country it is in, right? The country is always bigger than the mansion, right? So the country in turn, though, cannot compare to the size of the world, right? The world is composed of many countries, right? Okay. Yet the world in turn cannot compare to the sun, right? Our sun is bigger than the earth, right? Okay. The sun in turn cannot compare to the galaxy, and so on, right? So when you talk about forms, there's always there's a limit. There's a limit to, in this case, we're talking about dimension, the size, the dimensional aspect, which is size. So once you have a form, then you have a limit in terms of the size, right? Okay, so, all right. Okay, so now let's look at the last, the third line, okay? The basic meaning of the third line is, which is the last, which is, if it can be compared, it already would be insignificant. If the Tao can be compared to any form, then it already would be insignificant long ago, okay? Another way is it's another way of saying the Tao is formless, okay? So So the Tao is more like a concept, a principle, an idea that applies to everything and is the source of everything. So it's, it's intangible, it's formless, right? You can say it's emptiness, right? Buddhism, they say it's emptiness, right? Uh, okay, so it's like a concept because it's intangible. That's the problem. Okay, but it's real. Okay, just because it's intangible doesn't mean it's not real or that it doesn't exist. Okay, so the example would be like an analog, in using science or physical analog would be, it's just like that physical laws are true throughout the universe, but they are not things that can be physically touched or grasped. Okay, so that's the analog side. Okay, here's there's a deeper understanding. Okay, is that's we can say universal, broad, external. If the Tao is like a form, okay, suppose we can carefully observe it. Observing what this Tao is like something. After observing it for a long time, we will penetrate through it. At the most minute level, no matter whatever it is, everything is like the Tao because the Tao is the source of it. Basically, this just means that there is nothing smaller than the Tao itself. And at each level, the Tao is like its own, how can I say, it's its own universe. Okay, it's its own universe. All right. So this is a very subtle concept. It comes from it parallels what is similar to the Avatamsaka teachings. Okay, Hua Yan Jing. Okay, teachings. Okay, it's very subtle. Now, on the personal level, internal personal level, we can also realize that Tao is like that everything is like the Tao. This is the marvel of the Tao, the mystery of mysteries. Okay, so every individual unit is part of Tao and reflects the Tao overall. Okay, so it's like this is more on you can say internal personal macro level. I don't say macro level, maybe at the individual level, whereas this is at the universal level or the grandest level. Okay, so the implication is this, of this first section, is that no one, quote unquote, owns the Tao, because the Tao is the source of everything and has always existed before humans and will still exist after humans are long gone. This eternal quality of Tao is what makes the Tao so great and beyond compare. Anything that can be quantified or finite is finite. It's not the Tao. Yeah, so the Tao cannot be quantified, right? It's not finite. So the Tao is unquantifiable or infinite. That makes the Tao beyond compare. Okay, so here's the key is that, let's look at the external side, is that you can have the true Tao as an ideal to approach. Now, just because there is no one correct Tao that can be described completely does not mean we cannot point out inaccurate translations or inconsistent or wrong beliefs, okay, right? What we cannot do is, quote unquote, hoard the Tao or possess the Tao for ourselves, okay, or claim exclusive ownership, proprietary ownership, as if it's something for which you have a monopoly, okay? So we cannot do that, right? Because the Tao is everywhere, okay? It's in everyone, actually, okay? So people can come and go, governments can come and go, nations can come and go, but there will always be pathways leading from one place to another. So the Tao is always present, okay? Now, or eternal, okay, eternal. So just as the Tao is eternal, it is also formless, infinite, and unquantifiable. So it is beyond compare. Now, on the personal level, all sentient beings are the merger of the physical self and the Tao essence, okay, which is the oneness that allows for one's awareness, for the transcendence of one's physical self, that is beyond compare. So that's more on the internal side, okay, aspect. All right, okay. So now let's go to section 2. Just listing the 3 treasures, okay? So he's saying, I have 3 treasures. I hold onto and protect them. The first is called compassion. The second is called conservation. The third is called not daring to be ahead in the world. Yeah, that's pretty wordy, okay? So if you look at the Chinese, first and second, just one word. He can use one word to describe the first 2 treasures. But at the third, takes him 1, 2, 3, 6 words. So it's not easy. And so, I mean, we can try to shorten this, okay, and which we will, okay. So anyway, so here, Just a point to remember. Okay, so the basic of the first line about the three treasures, he's saying the three treasures I hold and to protect them, is that there are the three treasures of Tao which we have that we need to hold on to and protect. Okay, so we have that. Okay, we just have to hold on to it. Okay, and protect it, meaning we'll get to that anyway. Okay, but internally it means the three qualities of Tao within each of us that we need to accept and maintain. That's what it means by protect. Okay, to hold on, to protect. Okay, now also externally it just means that these are the three qualities of Tao that we need to apply and use. That's what's meant by to hold and to protect. Okay, all right. So further understanding is that there are three treasures of the Tao that we need to accept and maintain, hold on to, and then to manifest and apply. That's the protect part. Okay. Now let's talk about what the three treasures are. Okay. The second line, which is, the first, second, and third treasures. Okay. So it just means that the first one is compassion. The second one is conservation. The third is not daring to be ahead. Okay, we know that already. Okay, so what does that mean? It just means that compassion means, on the internal aspect, it's unconditional love. Yeah, it's and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, and having loving kindness, or I should maybe put it say having the mind of loving kindness. Okay, because that's internal. Okay, now external is to display gentleness, humaneness, benevolence, mercy, etc. Okay, all that. All right. Okay. Now it does not mean pity, though. Okay, so be very careful. Okay, it does not mean pity. Compassion does not. I mean, you can say compassion can encompass a quality of pittiness. Of having pity. Yeah, you can say that. Okay, you can say that, but it's not equate. It does not. It's more than pity. Okay, so that's very important. Compassion is more than pity. Okay, so now compassion is often associated with motherly love. Okay, now so what's the meaning of compassion? Let's go to appendix A. Okay, so what's the meaning of compassion? Okay, motherly love, etc., loving kindness, etc. Okay, now it is a specific type of love. Okay, compassion is a specific, because love can be very broad, right? Very general, right? Very, very broad. It's a specific love, which is what specific love that? It's unconditional love. It's not saying the same as the general term for love. Okay, the general term for love, is very broad. It's very broad. Right? It can mean a lot of things. It can mean different things to people. It could be personal. It could be selfish. It could be individualistic, or it can be broad, right? General. So it's very broad. So 慈, compassion, it's a specific aspect of love. Okay, and what is that? It is generally characterized by nurturing and togetherness. Okay, so that already tells you that it's a special type of love. It's a specific type of love. Okay, now what we know, what it is not, it's definitely not self-love. Well, we say, what's self-love? Narcissism, right? You can say that's narcissism, right? Part of that. It has nothing to do with love that strokes our ego. Okay, so that's not okay. So it has to be for others, definitely. It has to be broad, expansive, all inclusive. Okay, so what does that include? It includes the family, the love for the family, love for the community, love for the humanity. So it's, in this sense, it's similar to altruism. I mean, altruism is also, it's broad too, but it's also very specific, but it's sometimes too narrow, because compassion embodies altruism, but altruism may not be compassion. Okay, so anyway, all right. So not romantic love. Okay, it's not romantic love. Compassion is not. It's not charity, and which we'll get to, charity or mercy, because these are all narrow or conditional forms of love. That's very important, because you say, oh, how can it be not charity or mercy? Because isn't that type of love a type of love? Compassion, we say that's compassion, right? If you're being compassionate, you would have a mind of charity. Isn't that part of the 6 paramitas, right? Yeah. No, that's true. But this, what Laos is trying to get at is that this compassion is beyond charity and mercy. Okay, it's beyond that. It's greater than that. Okay, Charity is conditional. Why do I say that? Right? Let me ask you, if there are no poor people in this world, if everybody is a millionaire or billionaire or whatever, if everybody is well off, everybody has no material wants or needs or desires or needs, then is there need for charity? No. Okay. Now we can say charity of the heart. Now that I'm talking about physical, but there's also, now let me rephrase it. If everybody is good, if everybody is benevolent, if everybody is loving, is kind, gentle, humane, etc., then there's no such thing as charity of the heart. It just is, right? It just, there's no need. Same thing with mercy, right? We show mercy is because either there is something that's bad, right, happening, that's cruel, right? That's cruel, that's unkind, or whatever, right? So that's why these are conditioned. Okay. So what Lao Tzu was trying to take is that this compassion is non-conditional. It's non-conditional love. Okay. All right. So that's very important. All right. Okay. Now, it's very important to understand this, this concept of compassion, because this first treasure, compassion, becomes the foundation or the basis for the other two treasures. Yeah, believe it or not. Okay. So now, why is that? That's, conservation, the second treasure, right? That's called conservation. You conserve your resources because you care about not squandering anything. Now, this is, once again, conservation is not a great, I mean, it's almost the literal translation of the word, okay, of the word, okay, of the word jian, right? Jian, that's what the Chinese character jian, it means to conserve, not to be frugal, not to waste, be wasteful. That's the literal translation or literal meaning. Okay, it's really beyond that, but for now I don't want to get into it yet. Okay, but okay, so the very basic level, very, you can say superficial level, because you don't wish to, to waste or to, wantonly, waste energy, resources, efforts, or etc. Because you care. In other words, because you care about. So that's why it's conservation. So that care is a type of love, or that you care about something, right? That you're passionate about something. Okay. Okay. So that's the second treasure. Now the third is it's called not daring to be ahead in the world. So what does that mean? Okay, now we can use one word to describe it, but it's still very narrow. Okay, so we say humble or humility. So we'll use this narrow scope for now. Okay, so for the third treasure, it just means that the third treasure is because that of humility. From compassion comes humility. Because how's that? Because you want to serve for the benefit of others. Remember, the compassion is to be compassionate to all, to everybody. That love is for everybody, encompasses everyone, right? So then it comes that notion of humbleness, that humility, that, oh yeah, this love is so great, it's encompasses everybody. Then I'm willing to help others, to serve for the benefit of others. Okay, all right. So now there are historic examples of of this. Okay, I mean, you can put more. There's more, but I just picked out some. There's Buddha, right? He has great compassion, right? Compassion, you can say, is probably one of his qualities that would come to mind, right? That would be in the front. People say, "Oh, describe Buddha." What's Buddha like? What's Buddha like? What's his personality? What's his characteristic? You can say, yeah, he's very compassionate, right? So that's Jesus, same thing, right? Mother Teresa, same thing. Gandhi, pretty much same, because he cares for this whole country, his whole, people, right? You can say Nelson Mandela, same thing, okay? Martin Luther King, etc. Because they all have a deep well of compassion for others and love, and it's two parts, okay? There's compassion for everybody. Okay, that's one part, one half. But then there's also love for something greater than themselves, right? For a principle, right? For an ideal, that type of thing. For country, you can say, for country, that's a little bit more narrow, but for country, right? But okay, all right. So now, if someone's great achievement is not motivated by this deep love for something greater than themselves, then no matter what they may accomplish, they will not be regarded as the greatest in history. This is very important, all right? So we have examples of that in history. I don't need to get into it, but okay, so, all right? So it has to be love for something greater than themselves, okay? All right, so that's very important. All right, okay, so let's go, oops, let's go back. Oh, gotta lose some time here. Okay, let's go back. It's Appendix A, right? Okay. All right. Okay, so additional meaning is this. Of the second line, oops, okay, is that conservation means now, what does conservation mean? Okay, well, what does it really mean? Okay, on the internal level, it means moderation, which is non-excess or without extremes. That's the more higher level meaning, or the more, generic, okay, more generic idea. Okay, it means on the more practical side, conserving attention, energy, and time. Now, on the external level, it just means being frugal and not wasteful. So this is more the dictionary meaning. Okay, so this is about using your resources wisely, not just limited to monetary and material resources. This is necessary. Why you say, well, why do we have to be not wasteful or frugal or conserve our energy, efforts, or time, attention? Because life is finite. Right? You can't, right? Life is finite or has its limitations. Maybe just another way of saying, all right? Okay, so not daring to be ahead, that's the third treasure, means internally humility. Okay, so to use one word to describe it as humility, but in Chinese it's 谦虚. Okay, there are a couple other words. And why did Lao Tzu not use that? Okay, just use that because it's kind of narrow. Okay, it's too limited. It's actually more than that. Okay, now on the external side, it just means not to exert oneself in a leadership role, an action that comes from arrogance and the presumption of superiority. So it includes all that, right? So yeah, you can say 谦虚 embodies it, but does not necessarily 谦虚 means that you can assert, not to assert oneself. Okay, I mean it implies that, but doesn't mean that. Okay, so on the internal side, compassion is about lovingly taking care of all things to grow and develop. That's a very direct reflection of the innate nature of the Tao, right? The Tao naturally nurtures, right? In previous chapter, we talk about the rivers, right? Like the water flowing through the valley. It just goes about its business naturally, flowing through the valley. But along the way, it nurtures, right? It allows for living things to grow, to develop, etc., right? Okay, so that's what that compassion is. All right. Now, conservation, we say humility. Okay, it's about being hardworking, right? So humility doesn't, equate with hardworking, right? Usually, right? We think these are two, not opposite, but just two different traits, qualities, right? So that's why it's hard to use humility, just use humility to describe conservation. So it's about being hardworking, thrifty, and not wasteful. Okay, also humility too, but I will talk about that in the next point. So not daring to be ahead is about yielding politely. Oh, sorry. I mean, conservation is about non-extreme. That's what I meant. It's about non-extreme. Okay, so it's not. I got ahead of myself. So not being ahead is about yielding politely. That's the humility part. Sorry, and showing consideration to each other. Okay, so humility. Yeah, humility could say, yeah, you yield politely. Yeah, it's something like that. Okay, now, but for some examples of the various treasures, now we say, oh, hey, how come Lao Tzu isn't talking about our heavenly Tao's three treasures? No, it's not. It's totally different. Okay, don't forget. I mean, it's not to say that the heavenly three treasures did not exist during Lao Tzu's time. There is, but it's different. Remember, it's during that's the red era. Yeah, I think it's all the end of the green era, right? The green period, three treasures. That's different, right? Remember, right? Okay. The first treasure is the same, but the second and third is different, right? In the green era and the red era period versus the white period, right? Okay, so let's just, here's an example. I just want to highlight something here. Some different kinds. Now, there are some different kinds. Okay, I'm just giving 3 different kinds. Okay, so I mean, there could be many. Okay, there could be different ones, but it's here's the interesting thing. I don't know. I mean, I can say, not it's not just to the Tao, but I think in different religions too, okay, or even philosophies maybe, okay. Interesting things comes in threes, okay. Some very interesting things come in threes, okay. All right, okay. So now, so for the Tao, remember, okay, okay, in chapter, I sorry, made a typo here. Okay, chapter 67. I don't know why I did that. Okay, so we know we have these. Okay, so these. Okay, all right. So we have these three treasures. Okay, qualities. Okay, actually, these three are which we'll get to in the conclusion, but are really qualities of our Buddha nature. But anyway, okay. Now, in TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, they also have three treasures. There are three treasures. Okay, so there is the essence. Okay, that's the essential foundation of your health. Okay, the essence. All right. Okay, essence. That's the analog to. So what's the example of the essence? It's the in its analog example. It would be it's the quality and quantity of a wax. For example, I'm using a candle. Okay, as an example. Then the second one is called energy, qi. Okay, so it's jing and qi. Qi is the second one. It can be translated as either energy, vitality, life force, or breath. A little, it could mean that. That's the energy, the life force that courses through our body. So what's the analog? It's the flame or the heat of the candle. So if it's big flame, big heat, then that we can say your qi is very full. It's that's max. Okay, so that. Then the third component is called the spirit, soul, or mind, sun. That's what literally means. It can mean God, but in this case, it doesn't mean that. Okay, so your mental or that's the mental or spiritual qualities, such as cognition, intelligence, comprehension, understanding, awakening, etc. It's the whole gamut. Okay, so it could mean all that spectrum, but it's ultimately all about enlightenment and illumination. Okay, illumination. Okay, so that's the key. So it's the bright light or the illumination produced by the burning candle flame. Okay, so that's so you have the candle itself, the quality of the candle, and then the flame or the heat, and then the light produced by the flame or heat. All right, so that's in Chinese traditional medicine. That's the three treasures. Okay, so these all have to be in balance. So just understand that, right? So you can say, well, the illumination is partly predicated on the heat of the flame. Well, no, but then the heat and flame is also depends on the quality and the quantity of the wax. So they're all connected. All right. Okay. So that's right. Now in Buddhism, we have the three gems, right? The three jewels or gems of Buddhism, right? That's the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, right? Now these are the external. Most people, we see it as just external. Just the internal side too, which I think we have another class that talks about that. Okay, that talks about the three jewels or gems of Buddhism. All right. Okay. Actually, it's very closely related to the fourth. Here's the fourth. At a higher level, at an internal level, the heavenly Tao. Okay. Right. We have the heavenly Tao, which is the first treasure, the mystic portal. The second is the divine mantra or the wordless true sutra or true teaching, and then the holy covenant or hand seal or the holy mudra. Okay, so and I don't want to get into this because these are separate topics that we have classes on. Okay, so same thing with this. Okay, all right. So these are just examples. All right. So let's go to. Okay, so let's go to. All right. Okay, so let's go back. Okay. So here's the key. Oops. Okay. Okay. Compassion is about loving kindness and unconditional love, like motherly love, not about pity. Okay. Conservation is about moderation, non-excess, which is without extremes. That's another. Okay, that's a key point. Moderation. We say 中庸. Yeah, Confucius, it would be 中庸. Okay. But it's just means non-extremes, no extremes, okay, no duality, you can say, yeah, okay, and frugality about not being wasteful. Now, so this is more the external aspect, okay. So not daring to be ahead is about humility and non-contention, Yeah, that's important. Okay. So that's why it took Lao Tzu 6 words. Okay. These 6 words to describe the third treasure, because it embodies humility, non-contention, harmony, etc., etc. Okay. So it embodies a lot of, a lot of ideas. Okay. All right. Okay. So it's not about arrogance. So by merging the greatness of the Tao with these 3 treasures together, by holding on to and protecting these 3 treasures within us, then the entire Tao would be within us. Okay, so that's what Lao Tzu was trying to tell us. Okay, so now for the summary of the 3 treasures of Tao, let's go to part 1. Okay, so the 3 treasures of Lao Tzu. Okay, so first one is compassion. We say unconditional love. Now let's do, and we've described it already, so I don't want to talk about that. And we described it in Appendix A. So the challenge to us is to remind ourselves about how to reach, how broad and deep this unconditional love or compassion is that we never lose the natural innate compassion in your heart. Now, even when, and especially when someone is not deserving of it, I mean, we can qualify, say, oh, how can someone not be deserving of compassion? When we see so much hatred, right? There's so much hatred, so much, you can say prejudice, bias, etc., in other people. Yet, we can say, oh, that person, they don't deserve it. They deserve, whatever, they deserve, punishment, whatever, they reap what they sow, etc., etc. Okay. It's hard, we should try to fight against that urge. Okay, you can say it's a natural human urge, right? Human urge, but rather we have to still maintain that compassion. Man, that's not easy. Okay, now if you could do that, then really that's like the level of an enlightened sage or being, Tao masters. That's like, Buddha, Jesus, right? That's like them. Okay, so anyway, all right, so now what's conservation? Moderation, or no extremes, without any extremes, or not abiding in either extremes, duality. Okay, so the challenge here is can we consume only what we need and waste nothing? So like, being food, that's one example. I mean, food is an obvious example. Or in things that we use, we wear or stuff, do we buy more clothes than we really need? Right? Okay, stuff like that. Okay, so just okay, so it's moderation, right? We don't go overboard. Okay, so live a life of moderation, right? We conserve our time, energy, and attention, right? We have to know how to best properly allocate our limited resources, in the sense, with respect to time, to the energy or effort and attention that we pay on, right? That we apply to, right? Okay, so life is short, right? So we need to conserve, because life is finite, it's limited. So we have to make the most of it, right? So that's the practical. This is the practical. I mean, the internal side is more about non-extreme. Okay, non-extreme. We cannot be extreme. We have to follow the middle path, okay, all right, so now lastly, humility. I use the word humility, but it's more than that, just understand that. Okay, it's also about non-contention. Okay, non-contention, non-arrogant. Oh, humility, we can say non-arrogance. Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, so the challenge is this: let's not let go of the spotlight. Okay, so this also could mean non-ego, no self. Okay, so it embodies a lot of qualities. Okay, so the challenge is, can we let our ego go and not have to always want to have the spotlight and the need to be seen as, in this case, knowledgeable, handsome, beautiful, wealthy, powerful, whatever, all that. Okay, all that. Okay, all right, and also now this is also about mentorship too, believe it or not. Okay, so it provides others with help rather than our lectures. All we can do is just lecture other people. Say, if we see something that, it may be a fact, it may be factual, even if it's factual, if it's true, we should avoid lecturing other people, right? Rather, we should try to help others. Okay, provide us. So it's like a mentorship, that type of thing. Okay, or sponsorship. Okay, now you will gladly leave when people urge you to do so, though. I mean, so even though you're humble, you're humble, right? You're not arrogant or selfless, okay, etc. But when people want you to lead them or to guide them, you will still do that. Okay, you're not going to say, oh, I'm so humble that I don't want to be your, to lead you or to guide you. No, doesn't mean that. Okay, all right. So even when if people want you to help, then you will gladly do so. Now, if people don't want your help or don't want you to guide them, lead them, you'll just as gladly continue in your supporting role. So that's okay. So we have this no notion of it's actually very similar to no notion of wu wei. It embodies part of that notion. Okay, that means you still do whatever you have to do. You naturally do without any conditions. Okay, without conditions. All right. So that's why this embodies a lot. Okay, meaning. All right. Okay, so let's go back. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the next. This is the last section, or the first to the last section, subsection. Okay, so with compassion, thus able to be courageous. Conservation, or with, it's the with is implied, but with conservation, thus able to be widespread. Not daring to be ahead in the world, thus able to become developed. To become developed vessel. That means, literally, it's long. I mean, you can say it's long. 长 means long, right? Okay. Vessel. It just means to assume leadership, to be in front. Okay. All right. To be in front. All right. So the develop. Okay. Let's see where. Okay. Here's the basic meaning: is that compassion is not pity. Okay, and therefore you can be courageous. Right? So this is the courage that manifests when you have something you love and must protect at all costs. Okay, you love something so much, something that's bigger than you, right? Something that's greater than you, that you want to protect. All right, so that's very important. All right. Now, on a more, you can say, practical, individual level, it's this. It's just like a mother who loves her children will fearlessly protect them. So this courage comes from the mother's love. That's the compassion for her children, not from pity. That's not from pity. All right. So that's why it's that this word compassion. It's translated as compassion, because you can say, because if you translate as pity, so courage comes from pity, right? So that doesn't make sense, right? So that's why pity is a very narrow definition. Okay. So it's inadequate. Okay, it's inadequate in this case, right, to describe that phrase. Now, in the animal kingdom, in nature, it's about the lioness defending her cubs. Now, as we have seen, in documentaries or whatever, the lioness is absolutely fearless while striking fear in her enemies who wish to harm her cubs. Right? So that's an example, right, of that. The lioness is displaying compassion, okay, for her cubs. Okay, anyway, all right. Okay, now let's look at the second phrase, which is conservation thus able to be widespread. What is that? Okay, so conserving, and therefore your influence, efforts, impact, and can be widespread. So if you are conserving, that means I'll say frugal, that means if you are able to do things in moderation, believe it or not, your influence or efforts or impact or accomplishment can be widespread or can be lasting. Okay, another way of saying. Okay, so another way of saying is that our various resources are finite, and so is the time we have in this world. This realization should motivate us to make the most of our time in this world. To be widespread is to be able to accomplish as much of our vision as possible, the extent of our efforts, influence, or achievements. Okay, so this is more external. All right, so we don't want to. Okay, so another one is, as Dao cultivators, once we have experienced a spiritual awakening, okay, we will most likely have many things we wish to accomplish, right? Yeah, okay, hopefully, right? I mean, you know, okay, okay. So the only way to realize our vision to the utmost, that's being widespread, is to manage our time budget, our expenditure, and choose our priorities wisely. So that's what it means by conservation, okay? So it implies being moderation, have moderation. Don't go to extremes, okay? All right. So the further understanding of the second phrase is that we realize that life is short and precious, and we can no longer waste any of it, because we have a greater purpose, all right? We can do the most with what we have, okay? So that's the conservation part, okay? All right, now the last phrase, okay, now, okay, what's a long vessel? Or a long tool, long vessel. That's the literal translation of that means. Now, the ancient usage means the long vessel or tool means a leader. Yeah, so it's not, you know, it's not physical. I mean, it's not, you know, referring to to a vessel or to a tool, a utensil. Okay, so it's like an instrument with longer reach, enabling one to make things happen from a distance, or a longer vessel that accommodate or hold more things. Okay, that's the metaphorical. Okay, so in ancient usage, it's metaphorical. Okay, so the basic meaning of the third phrase is that, or the second line is that, not daring to be ahead in the world and therefore can become a leader. It means not daring means not presuming, presuming. Okay, to presume. Okay, and not feeling entitled to lead. Okay, so it's about a little bit about, you know, being very arrogant or full of oneself. That's the thing, you know, that, oh, you are, you know, you're the only capable one, you know, nobody else is capable, you know, okay, you know, okay, so that's what it means. Okay, now specifically, this refers to a Dao leader someone who practices servant leadership. Remember section 2 last week we talked about it in Rivers and Oceans, right? Section 2, we talked about that, right? Okay, the sages wishing to be over people should be speaking humbly to them. Wishing to be in front of people should be placing themselves behind them. That's section 2 of chapter 66. All right. Okay, that's what it refers to, being a Tao leader. Okay. Now, also, the Tao leader will not refuse leadership when people choose him or her to the front. An acceptance of the role will clearly benefit everyone. That's, remember, they are sages are positioned in front, but people do not feel harm. Remember the 10th and 11th phrase of chapter 66 and chapter 66, right? 10th and 11th, which is what? The sages are positioned in front, but people do not feel harmed, right? Okay. Deeper understanding on the internal side is not daring to be ahead in the world means one can be a master of all tangible forms. That's very interesting, right? So, what does that mean? It just means that we allow our true nature, that intangible nature, it's beyond the human nature, to be in control. When that's the case, because it is intangible, because it is a Tao, because it is part of the Tao, it is not the Tao. So it can give rise, be the source of everything that's good, that's beneficial, etc. So that's to be the master of all tangible forms. All right. Okay. So true courage is inspired from true compassion. Broad and expansive efforts or impacts is inspired from hard work and thriftiness, or we can say moderation. Okay. Leadership is inspired from deep humility. That's the practice of servant leadership. Okay, remember, I don't want to go into it, but appendix C, you can look it up of chapter 66. Okay, now the key is this: it is very natural for courage to manifest from compassion. Extensive and widespread influence or accomplishments is achieved by conservation, moderation, non-extremes, you don't go into extremes. And good leadership comes from not presuming to be ahead. Now, on the internal side, it just means not daring to be ahead in the world, is to have mastery of all intangible. It just means that to have our Buddha nature be in control, okay, or true nature, okay, or conscious, all right, okay. So we're no longer be subject to, tangible forms, or forms that can lead to extremes. Okay, all right. All right, now let's go look at the second subsection of part 3 is now. Why is this bold? It shouldn't be bold. Okay, anyway, but sorry about this. Okay. All right. Okay. 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 What is so now? If one is courageous but discards compassion, if one is widespread but discards conservation, if one goes ahead but discards being behind, then death. So, all right. Okay. So that's kind of serious, but there's another meaning for the death too. It just means, okay, well, anyway, we'll talk about it. Okay. So the first phrase is, now if we discard compassion but have courage, that is to have the non-Dao kind of courage. Okay. So that's very important. So that means, remember, if we have courage, must come from compassion. That's what makes true courage. Okay, so if courage does not come from compassion, then that's a non-Dao kind of courage. Okay, what is that? That means that is courage without compassion is having false bravado. It's a macho facade. It's a mindless rage, fighting for hatred instead of love. Now, a warrior can have the highest level of courage, skill, speed, strength, and resourcefulness, but if these qualities are not backed by compassion or love, or benevolence, humanity, etc., then they are all meaningless. Okay, very important. All right, so that's why. Well, in chapter 69, we talk about a little bit more. That's why the greatest warriors. Now, I'm talking about fighting, combat warriors. Okay, not on the metaphorical level. It's also has a metaphorical level too, but at least when we're talking about the basic level, it's that all the greatest warriors throughout history, they have courage, skill, speed, strength, etc. But they are the greatest because also they have compassion. That's very important. All right. Okay. So because that courage comes from compassion, you can say. All right. So that's why. So the courage sourced in compassion has true inner strength and determination. It is the kind of courage that does not give up. So like the lioness, defending her cubs, protecting her cubs, same idea, right? Okay. So courage without compassion is a hollow shell. Lots of hot air, chest thumping, and saber rattling. Okay, it's empty. It's not backed up by something. Okay, now it's backed up by hatred. You can say, yeah, okay, all right, okay, hot air, hatred, etc. Okay, now it will panic and run when the tide of battle turns. That's the thing. Okay, so we can see, a lot of people say, oh yeah, they're very courageous, but when the tide turns, if they lack compassion, then they're going to be the first to run, or they'll run. Okay, they'll when the tide turns, goes against them. Okay, so that's very important, right? Because they're not fighting for a love or something that's bigger than them. So that's greater than them. We can say cause, yeah, fighting for a cause, but even then that could be limited. But anyway, depends on what kind of cause too. All right. So okay, so courage without compassion is just comparing and competing who's better. Yeah, that's what it is. So on most levels, it's like that. Okay, we see a lot of competitions, be it sports. That's what elevates some other players or competitors above all others is because they have that compassion for the sport, we say, or compassion for something that's greater than themselves. So it's beyond their egos. It's not their egos. Okay. All right. So all right. So the second phrase about second phrase is, if one discards conservation but is widespread. This is the common issue today of trying to do too much without a sensible plan. That's the problem. It leads to nothing but stress and exhaustion. Having widespread efforts, but without a plan that allocates your resources wisely based on priorities that you have identified. So it's about being moderate, taking the moderate approach. Okay, having, all right, okay, don't go into extremes. Don't work yourself to death, spending so much effort and yet with very little to show for it. All right. Okay. So on the external side, it just means that the real Tao is not against setting goals or time management or to-do lists. The Tao it's not opposed to that. Okay. It doesn't. It's not. The real Tao is against what the real Tao is opposed to is against proceeding thoughtlessly. thoughtlessly, yeah, without a good plan, wasting resources and getting poor results. Okay, all right. So additional meaning is okay, all right, okay, here. This is to caution us about wasting one's mind on different schools of thought. Yeah, different, we say different philosophies, different religions, etc., different doctrines, etc., or many different books, teachings, ideas, and teachings, because you can easily end up getting nothing done. There's a reference to this, okay? Only this conservation is called submitting early. That's on second line of chapter 59, all right? We talked about that, okay? That is, we should give up the fruitless search, venturing everywhere, seeking every school of thought under the sun for a solution. The point is to focus on one thing well. Now, it has to be, now I got to qualify. You have to focus on the correct thing well, okay? So that's what I meant. Okay, focus on the one correct thing. Okay, maybe that's maybe I should put that in parentheses, or just to qualify. I want to qualify. Okay, one correct thing well, or proper. You can say proper. Okay, the proper approach, the correct approach. Rather than digging so many shallow wells, just dig one well deeply in order to find the water. Okay, all right. So 59, we talked about what's submitting early. So that's the same idea. Okay, that conservation. All right. So if we fail to conserve our resources mentally and physically, that's the internal external side, you have to settle for a narrow attainment or impact or result instead of widespread accomplishment or effects and influence. Conservation means moderation in our endeavors. Okay, so all right. Now the last two phrases is, okay, if one discards being behind, but goes ahead, and then death. Okay, so if one tries to be a leader, that's to be ahead, without first being a follower, being behind, then it never ends well. Yeah, that's pretty interesting, right? So, last chapter we talked about humility, right? About how George Washington, he was the commander in chief, and yet he's willing to do anything that he orders his men to do, right? So that's what it means, right? That's why he is considered, a leader, a true leader. All right. Okay. All right. So think of being behind as paying your dues, learning the business, following the steady path of learning from those before you. So that's the humble part, the humility side. Okay. Now, in practical, in today's world, in business world, we say whether it's the family business or in government, whenever someone decides to skip the service part of servant leadership, that's to be a peon, to do the lowly stuff, okay, the low level stuff, okay, that form of leadership will never endure or last. So you have leaders who don't know, how the followers, what type of work they do, or how hard they do, or to learn the ropes, if you will, or to make things work. If the leaders doesn't understand that, then their leadership will be in trouble. Okay, all right, or their form of leadership will be in trouble. Okay, so further understanding is on the internal side. Here's the internal side: is that without learning the basics, for example, such as in Dao cultivation, right? For example, I'm using example in Dao cultivation. We have to learn the basics too, right? And wishing to go to the highest level from the start, the result will not be lasting because we don't have the fundamentals right. You can say, oh, I want to skip all this, stuff talking about, what's this, rules and regulations on the, I'm beyond that, I'm beyond that. Or, how to be, be humble and be, that's all elementary stuff. I'm beyond that. I want to go to the highest level. I want to go to the highest level. You may be able to achieve that, but it will not last because you do not have a solid foundation to rely upon, to fall back on. Get it? Okay, so it's the solid, just like in chapter, what's that, 64? Chapter 64, right? To assist all things, to supplement all things. What is this? Subsection 2 of part of section 1 in chapter 64, which says a tower of 9 levels starts from an earth heap or a pile of heap. A journey of 1,000 miles begins from beneath the feet. right? A tree thick enough to embrace around grows from a tiny sapling, right? That's subsection 2, okay? So that's the same idea, all right? Okay, so now the implication is this. If one discards compassion but has courage, then one will do evil. Yeah, that's very important, right? Okay, so because you're not necessarily doing it for beyond yourself, or for you're not, it's not for the love of something that's greater than you. Okay, it becomes a selfish type of thing, selfish type of courage. Then it's very, very possible to do evil, or to deviate, because you just want to maybe benefit yourself or something. Okay, so if one discards conservation or moderation but expends much effort, then one will get nowhere. Okay, so that's important too, right? Okay, because we become scattered. We don't have a detail, a good plan or roadmap. Okay, we go every which way. Okay, and so that will lead you nowhere. You spend a lot of effort, but you get nowhere. Okay, so if one discards being behind, that's the servant leadership. But is ahead, that's being a leader, then it will not last for long. If we do not apply the 3 treasures to courage, expansive efforts, and leadership, then we will not endure or last. So that's what death means, okay, from Lao's paradigm. It doesn't mean necessarily you die early, okay, or you die young. It doesn't necessarily mean that, okay. Just the more broadly speaking, it just means that it will not last, okay. Whatever sort of achievements, whatever sort of courage, whatever sort of what's that? So whatever sort of widespread efforts, or achievements or accomplishments you have, but without moderation or conservation, and whatever type of leadership role you have, but without following servant leadership, then they will not last. Okay, so the key point is this. All right, which I think just right here. Okay, all right, this section is about the wrong ways to use the 3 treasures. Okay, this section. All right. Okay, if we do not use the 3 treasures in having courage or having widespread efforts and leadership, then we are doomed. By using the term for death, it's a stark warning about not applying the 3 treasures, which are compassion, conservation, and being behind. Being courage, extensive efforts, and leadership, being ahead. Okay, so this is the example. Okay, now, okay, it's very important about the humility part, the third part, the leadership part, is that now they're the examples of teachings of Dao of humility. All right, that now there's a high level, okay, very high level idea that's found in the story. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the story. I mean, if I give you it's the story of one of the philosophers. I think he may be a logician, come from the school of logician. When Zhuangzi was alive, during his time, okay, there were many schools of thought, different schools, different philosophical schools, et cetera, whatever, okay. And he had many friends, in the philosophical circles, and they come from all different schools of thought. So this is one of them, okay. So this philosopher, Dong, I think it's Dong, philosopher Dong was asking asking Zhuangzi, you always speak of this fantastic Dao, this great Dao, this marvelous Dao, this profound Dao. Well, where can you find this Dao? Okay, so now, because this philosopher is very follows the conventional thinking of his day, which is that if something that is so precious, so marvelous, so profound, must therefore be very, very what can I say, very high, very high. You can say very high, very I'm trying to use the right word. It must be something very precious, something that's very noble. Maybe that's the better term I want to use. Very noble, very noble, very royalty-like, something that's not common, not among the poor, for example, okay, so that's what this philosopher's thinking was. Okay, so I don't know if any of you know the story. It's a very, very well-known story. It's found in the outer chapters. Knowledge roams in the north, or it depends on how you translate. Sometimes you say wonders wanders in the north or rambles in the north, whatever. Okay, it's about this. Okay, and at the very end, I'll give you the title of the story. Okay, so this philosopher Dong asked Zhuangzi, say, okay, what you call the Tao, where can it be found? And Zhuangzi responded by saying, there is nowhere it is not found. It's everywhere. There's nowhere it's not. I mean, that's another way of saying, right? The double negative, nowhere not found, right? So it's a double negative. It just means it's everywhere. Okay. So then philosopher Dong then ask again, well, give me an example. When you say it's everywhere, give me an example of where it can be found. Okay. And now this story was based on when these two people were walking through the countryside. Okay, they're walking through the countryside. They're following a country road, passing by farmlands, farms, etc., etc. Okay, all right. Okay, so all right. So Zhuangzi said, okay, fine. He said, as they were walking along the trail or the country path, they passed by an anthill. So Zhuangzi pointed to the ants. Because, oh, the Tao is here in this ant, in the ant. And then philosopher Dong said, what? So low? I mean, the ant is the lowest level. Well, one of the lowest levels of animals, of creatures, right? Well, why so low? So Mencius did not respond. They continue walking, and then they pass by a field of could say wild grass or whatever, weeds, overgrown weeds. Not the land hasn't been cultivated. It's not cultivated. So then he pointed to the weeds, or we say weeds. Some people say grass. Okay, it doesn't matter. Weeds. He said, it's also in the grass, in the weeds. And then philosopher Dong says, wow, that's even lower. That's even lower than the ants. At least the ants are, quote unquote, alive, meaning that they can do what they want to do, whereas a plant, a weed, a grass, it's what is it? It can't do anything. I mean, it's not okay. Then as they were walking, they happened to pass by a farmhouse or barn or whatever being repaired. Okay, or being repaired. The roof is being repaired, and there's a pile of porcelain tiles or stuff like that, for the roof. Then Zhuangzi pointed to the tiles and said, oh, it's also in the tiles. It's also in the tiles. And then the philosopher Dong was saying, what? First you're saying it's in the ant, which is the lowliest of the creatures, and then it's in the grass, which is very insignificant of the plants, the plant world. And now you're pointing to something that's inanimate. That's what is tile? It's made from clay, right? Soil. It's like dirt. What? Wow, it's even lower than that. And so he said, wow, this is even lower. So is there anything even less lower than that? And so they happened to pass by. Remember, this is the farm area, right? Farm, they passed by, pasture. The pasture. They walked past pasture, and there were, some cows or whatever, horses, grazing and stuff. And then they walked past. They walked past that pasture, and Zhuangzi then pointed to a pile of manure, feces. Says, it's also in the feces and urine. So then philosopher Dong became speechless. So he couldn't respond, and so Zhuangzi said, you can't respond? Can you respond? Okay, so what the whole story what Zhuangzi wanted to show or teach philosopher Dong is that, and his question about where is the Tao, misses the whole point about the Tao. Yeah. So if you have the question about the Tao, or question about, where's the Tao, that misses the point. Okay, about Tao, because from the standpoint of the Tao, there is no lofty or lowly among things. Yeah, the Tao does not discriminate. So that's the 分别心 part. Okay, the what we call the discrimination mind, the mind of this, or discrimination or whatever. Okay, differentiation. I would say differentiation. Okay, mind of that. From the Tao's perspective, There is no such thing as the high and the mighty and the low and the low and the weak or whatever, okay? The ants, the weeds or the grass, the tiles and the excrement or feces are all the same in the Tao because they're all just material manifestations of nature, okay? All right? So here's the key. If they are not the manifestations of the Tao, then each of them would not have an essence or have no essence, or say essence, have no source, okay? Have no source. That's why he said the Tao is everywhere, because the Tao gives rise to everything. So it's everywhere. It's everywhere in the sense, metaphorically, in the sense it's manifested, it's found in all manifestations, get it? Of the phenomena, of all phenomena. Okay, so that's one. So now this is a very advanced learn. Now, as you probably have guessed, for some of you, the title of the story is called "The Tao Is in Excrement." Okay, so all right, okay, so that's it's a well-known story. So he's talking about that humility, notion of humility, or not, you can say non-differentiation between the high and the low. Yes, from the Tao's perspective, Zhuangzi is talking about from the Tao perspective, the Tao perspective. Okay, that non-duality perspective. Okay, whereas in humans, yes, Lao Tzu also talked about it, right? In chapter 30, talked about, there's a difference between high and low. Yes, he did talk about that, right? Chapter 38, right? Remember high virtue or high benevolence? Yeah, high virtue versus low virtue, right? He talks about it, but he's saying that high virtue is also true virtue because it is not virtue. So we don't call it virtue. So he's trying to get at it. He's trying to bridge from our human perspective, which often falls into duality, right? Duality, high, low, front, back, etc., etc. He's trying to push us to go beyond that to the view perspective from the Tao, saying actually we call it virtue, but it's not real virtue. And also that's very similar to Diamond Sutra, by the way. Okay, Diamond Sutra. Okay, so you guys can look that up. Okay, there are different chapters. He talked when Buddha was explaining. All right. Okay, the different, not just about ultimately, talking about supreme enlightenment, but he says supreme enlightenment is called supreme enlightenment, but it's really not supreme enlightenment. Huh? Right? Well, what does that mean? Okay, so same idea. Okay. All right. So I already took up a lot of time. I want to finish this last section. This is it. This is the last. Oh, this is the last section. Thank God. Okay. All right. Last subsection. So if one fights with compassion, this is the summary now, okay, or you can say wrap up or conclusion or synthesis. Then victory, with defense, then security. Heaven shall save them, with compassion guard them. Okay, what does that mean? Seems very cryptic, right? Or what does it relate? How does it relate? Okay, so to the rest of the chapter. So on the external side, victory, which we tend to think of battles, right? In this context, it's not referred to military battles in ancient China, but refers to the various battles, quote unquote, we fight in life. Or you can say challenges, obstacles, etc. Okay, so battles in this case mean the challenges or problems, obstacles we face in life, not contention, which is not contention, not debate, or not strife. Okay, that means we have, we want a life that's without contention, without debate or strife, right? Okay. Now another meaning is that the Tao is not pacifistic. Very important, okay? So many of the greatest warriors in Chinese history were all cultivators or students of the Tao. But the Tao is not about aggression, though, okay? Okay, not about attacking, not warlike. Rather, it is about harmony, peace, and peace. It is more like defending, protecting, and serving others. Now, we'll get a little bit more into details on this on chapter 69, okay? 69, which we can talk about, okay, in a couple of weeks. All right. Okay. So talks about that. All right. Okay. So the message is clear. All right. When you must fight a battle in life, okay, make sure you are fighting for the right reason. Okay. For the right cause, you can say. Okay. All right. For something you really care about, something that is greater than yourself, something that you believe in. Fight the good fight. Wage the worthy war. Not a religious war, okay, for the greater goal of achieving safety and security for the benefit of protection of all right? So some people say, yeah, fight for love of country because you want to defend your country against either aggression or against threats. Okay, that's fine. That's a worthy. That's a worthy fight, right? That's a worthy fight, right? It's beyond yourself. Okay, all right. So that's fine, but that's still at a very low level. Okay, compared what really the highest level of the Tao. It's actually on the individual level. But anyway, okay. So internal, it's more about this, which is this. Okay, it's if we have compassion that arises from our true self or Buddha nature, then we can be victorious in our quote unquote battles with our egos. That's the key. So, that's the higher level that Lao Tzu was implying, that, our battles, okay, within ourselves, which is mainly against our ego, right? Ego, or you can say desires and all that other stuff. Yeah, the desires, the 6 roots, etc. We have, in order to have victory over them, we need to have this compassion that comes from our true self, not comes from the ego, not comes from narcissism or egotistical love, because stuff like that, or selfish love. Okay, not that. It's that unconditioned love. With unconditioned love, then you can be victorious in our battles of our egos. Now, just note well, the true compassion is the first component of the 4 immeasurable minds of the Bodhisattva. You know that, right? We know what the 4 immeasurable minds, right? 四无量心, 慈悲喜舍, right? 慈 means compassion. It's the first one. Okay, it's the first one. 悲, we say compassion, we say mercifulness, etc., etc. Okay, benevolence, you can say, yeah, okay. I mean, those two are how can I say, are connected. Okay, really connected. Okay, all right. Bei literally means well, I don't want to talk about 4 immeasurable. We have a separate class of that. You can look it up. Okay, so anyway, but just remember the first component is compassion. Loving kindness, compassion. Okay, all right. So the basic meaning of the second line, which is, and with defense, then security. What's that mean? Following the Tao like this, that's the defense. By applying the 3 treasures to courage, to widespread efforts and leadership, gives you authentic power. That is, heaven protects you with the power of divine compassion, just as you guard loved ones or a cause for which you feel deeply or believe in deeply. Okay, so that's what that second one means. Okay, so another way is this: is everything goes your way, as if heaven itself is actively assisting you. Recall, heaven and earth together in harmony will rain sweet dew. That's from 7th phrase of chapter 32. All right, okay. This rain or sweet dew is symbolic of the good life. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. Just as you would display compassion to all, heaven too will protect you with divine compassion. Okay, on the external level, okay, this happens automatically as a natural consequence of your path of cultivation. You will overcome the challenges in life by living a proper and meaningful life that you created for yourself. While people who do not know the Tao will think that you are just lucky, fortunate, that this quote favor, unquote, of heaven, sweet dew, seems like good fortune or lucky breaks to them. Now, on the internal level, that's external. Internal is this: by applying the 3 treasures within us, you are in harmony or being congruent to the Tao, with the Tao. So your mind will, quote, win, unquote, the battle to be calm, peaceful, and tranquil, like being protected or guarded by the compassion of heaven. Thus, or we can say compassion, the Tao, you can say that, okay. Thus, the emphasis on the loving kindness / protective compassion, which are not weapons of war, not an army, but it is so powerful and works wonders. Okay, so on the external side, implication is this, is that when you fight, that is the battle, the challenges in life, with compassion, that's unconditional love, and you win the good fight, then that is something truly worthwhile, because it leads to the protection, safety, and security for the benefit of everyone. Just as you guard others with compassion, heaven also protects you with compassion. On the internal level, this is a reflection of your quote unquote battle to have inner peace by having a mind of compassion or unconditional love. That is a natural manifestation of your true self. It's a natural manifestation. All right. So now the key, here's the conclusion. Okay, I'm almost done here. Conclusion is this. This point is out to us a key point where the first lines of this chapter state that everyone calls my Dao great, and only because the Dao, it, is beyond compare that it is great. If it can be compared, then it would be insignificant a long time ago. It is only because the Tao is beyond comparison that is so incredible, so great, so wonderful. Now, here's where it ties to this last section about, okay, the three treasures, from the first section about the great Tao, okay, or my Tao is so great. If you substitute, here's the key. If you substitute the word Tao with compassion, or, unconditional love, I should put unconditional love here, but in the above here, my Tao great, okay, and only because where love is the universal unconditional love for something greater than yourself, where love is great, it cannot be compared to anything in existence. If compassion or unconditional love could be compared like a physical thing, then we can always find something that would make it small by comparison. Okay, so that's the connection. All right. Okay, so that's why it's the first treasure. Okay, Laos is call it the first treasure. That's the reason why. Okay, like the Tao, unconditional love or compassion is formless and unlimited. It cannot be compared to anything. And that is exactly what makes it so great beyond compare. This is the universal truth. That's why in the four great immeasurable minds of the Bodhisattvas, compassion comes first. Okay. Now, okay. All right. So where the first treasure, okay, this is where it is. Okay. Where the first treasure of the Tao, compassion or unconditional, is the essence of our being. It is the innate natural trait of our true self. That's the immeasurable mind of the Bodhisattva. Okay. Where it is the source of true courage, which then leads to the second treasure, conservation, or you can say moderation, okay, or without extremes, okay, without extremes, because it enables widespread efforts, or it leads to the widespread efforts effects, which leads in turn to the third treasure, that is leadership or humility, or not being in front, because true leadership is found in supporting everyone. That's the servant leadership, right? We discussed that in chapter 66, okay? Whereby being courageous without compassion, having widespread efforts without conservation, or leading without providing support, then one will fail and perish or not last. Okay, so that's why we have to apply the three treasures in being courageous, in having widespread efforts, and in leadership. Okay, so where the only way, okay, to win the battle of life is to fight with true courage in defending all that is good. Then heaven itself will come to your aid and protect you with its divine and compassionate power. Why is that? Because you reflect the Tao, okay, in you. So therefore, you are congruent to the Tao, congruent to heaven. So that means you are what? Being congruent, conformance, but it's like you are riding the wave of the Tao. Same idea, it's like in surfing, when you don't try to compete against the surf, right? The huge waves. You rather try to be what? In harmony with it. So you ride the crest of the surf, of the wave, right? So that's like the wave is helping you to be on the top. Okay, so it's like that. It's being in harmony. Okay, being in harmony. It's being at one. You can say, yeah, that's being at one with the wave. Okay, with the surf. Okay, all right. So where courage or true courage, is inspired by true compassion, where widespread effort or impact or influence, you can say, is inspired from conservation, the middle way of hard work and thriftiness, or moderation. Okay, where leadership is inspired from deep humility that is not daring to be ahead, where compassion, conservation, and humility are the three treasures of this incomparable great Tao. Okay. All right. I think that's everything. Yeah, that's everything. So, yeah, that's everything. So, I'm sorry it took about 90 minutes, but yeah, it's a long chapter, but I'm glad we got done with it. So, anyway, so that concludes chapter 67, Three Treasures. So, if there are things that I said incorrectly or wrong, when I ask for the Buddha's and Lao's guidance, forgiveness, and everyone's guidance. Okay, thank you.